Yo, what is happening? My name is Afton and welcome to the 5th episode of the Steam series. In the last episode, we built this absolutely insane steampunk shop, but we pretty much only built the exterior of the building, and some of the parts, especially on this side over here, aren't even fully built, so we need to absolutely put those parts in, and then we need to build the entire interior of this shop because this is not ready to be selling items at all. We gotta have a bunch of shelves in here to store all of the items that we are gonna be selling in this shop. Now, unfortunately, the only items we have so far are the Halloween items that we stocked up on. We don't have the Thanksgiving items, and those have gone off sale, so we kind of didn't have time to stock up on them, but it's no worries. We have a bunch of Christmas presents that we need to stock up on, and luckily Jab is super rich now because he did a live stream getting a bunch of money, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. But yeah, with that said, let's hop straight into building the interior of the Steam shop. So Jab's actually going to start off by putting in some pretty basic shelves, and while he does that, I'm gonna go run over and grab a truck so I can fill it up with a bunch of things from Fancy Furnishings. We're gonna need a bunch of ovens. So yeah, basically I'm going to just be filling in these two gaps right here with some boilers. So to build those, I'm gonna grab a bunch of ovens and wall lights. To get those, I'm gonna have to go across the bridge over to Fancy Furnishings. Alright, I've got a bunch of ovens from Fancy Furnishings. Let's get this back to the base. Of course, I think I'm gonna have to make a few trips because this is not gonna be enough ovens for what we're using them for, but it'll get us through the first little section. Let's get these all over here. Oh, it looks like Jab's already got a bunch of shelves in. That's looking pretty good so far. But yeah, like I was saying in the last episode, I'm going to be putting in some shelves in these little gaps. So yeah, I'm basically just using these corner kitchen cabinets, and I'm placing them in sideways so they will act as shelves. Alright, I got all of those in. Once I fill them in, you'll be able to see them a lot more clearly. Alright, this is the last one to fill in, and there we go. We've got some shelves. I mean, they don't really look like shelves from here, but on the other side, you can see these are going to offer some spaces to put in some gifts or whatever we want to display on these shelves. So now that I got these shelves in, I'm actually going to put in some ovens right inside of them. So in order to place those inside, I'm going to have to plot shift all of those shelves out of the way. I guess to make it consistent, I'm just going to place down a short, smooth wall right about here, and then I can place the stove against that. And I believe that should be the correct measurements to make that black part just go right through. Yeah, it kind of looks like that will be. So now I just got to do that for the rest of them. Alright, we got all of those ovens in place. Now I'm just going to reload to see what it looks like with the cabinets in place as well. Alright, there we are. I just loaded back in, and that looks so cool, honestly. I'm really liking that. So yeah, these cubbies we could just put items on like so. And yeah, they'll just hold items. We'll see what we actually end up putting on here. Probably more of a taller gift because there is a lot of space vertically. But yeah, I'm really liking how those look so far. Now on the other side, you'll notice that there is a little bit of Z-fighting on all of the sides. And that's completely fine. We're just going to cover all of that up so you don't have to deal with seeing all of that Z-fighting because yeah, it is a little bit jarring. So essentially what I'm going to do is build a frame around this, which in order to do that, just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to plot shift some of the ground out of the way just so I can save a little bit of wood. So essentially, I'm just going to build out some framing with a short, smooth wall, and the reason I plot shifted the floor out of the way is just so that I can place this in, because that is actually inside of the floor. And then I can place in a smooth wall to make that go all the way to the other side, and I think I'm going to do that one more time for, of course, the other boiler. And there we go. Now on the front, I'm just going to make it come out by an extra stud and round out the corners. just like that. So now we have a fairly solid foundation. Of course, I'm gonna have to make the actual like blue spruce foundation come out a little bit because right now these are overhanging a little bit, which I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but it would look better if we just extend the main foundation out a little bit. But anyways, I'm going to place in some more of the framing, just using some posts on each side. And then I'm pretty much just gonna do what we did on the bottom, just for the top. Now I'm just gonna place in some skinny smooth walls on the center of each of the boilers, and then round out some more corners. And oh, looks like that just despawned, which means we are running out of blueprints that can be actively unfilled on the base at any given time. That means that I need to go ahead and fill these in, which luckily Jab has just got a bunch of koa wood. We're actually going to be using koa wood to fill in all of these blueprints. So I'm gonna go grab some of that and then fill all of the blueprints. Alright, there we go. We got a frame around the boiler, basically. But you'll notice that that doesn't do the job fully. You can still see some Z-fighting on the sides. So to fix that, I'm actually going to plot shift these wedges out of the way. And I'm going to place some thin countertops in their place all the way along the side. And that's going to cover everything up. And I'm going to use walnut wood, which is going to give us a very dark color, which is going to be perfect. It's going to add a lot more contrast. All right, for the next step, I'm going to need 14 more wall lights. I have got a little bit, but we're going to need even more. So I'm gonna go make a quick trip over to Fancy Furnishings. Alright, I've made it over to Fancy Furnishings. I'm gonna need 14 wall lights. Alright, I got 14 wall lights. Let's get these back to the base. And now I'm gonna place these basically as if they're kind of like pipes. Because they're circular, they look like pipes when you place them in a certain way. Alright, there we go. I put in all of the wall light pipes, but real quick before I unplot shift everything, I'm just going to put in some golden pipes as well. These are just going to be gold wood, basically. Alright, I think with those pipes in, I'm just going to reload my slot real quick and unplot shift all of that. Alright, so there we go. We've got some boilers in, and that's actually looking so dope. So yeah, that's just using the back of ovens for the gray parts and then just framing it. I mean, it looks super cool. It looks like it would be boiling water, generating electricity or whatever. Now there is a gap up there, so I'm just going to fill it in with some walnut skinny smooth walls. Yeah, that is pretty much the boilers done, I think. Now I'm gonna shift my attention over to this wall because it is pretty plain. So to fix that, I'm just gonna use some posts to quickly add a little bit of extra framing. Now I'm just gonna add in some pipes. Oh, and I almost forgot, we also need to extend the bottom platform out a little bit to support the boiler. Alright, now I'm going to add some supports to this ladder to make it look less like just a random ladder was just placed here. We're gonna actually attach it to the building. So to build the supports, I'm basically just gonna take a smooth wall and place it against the ladder. And basically that'll allow me to place in some wires. And I'm just gonna place it up to about here. That looks good. Gonna do the same thing on the other side. And then up at the top, I'm going to add a few extra blueprints so I can place in like a curve right here. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. These are gonna be the rails of the ladder, just as a safety rail. And with this safety rail in, I can actually attach the ladder to the wall. Alright, so now that that is attached to the actual wall, I'm just gonna destroy all of these blueprints that we used. And there we go, we've got a little ladder right here with some supports. And yeah, that makes it look a lot more integrated. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. It's looking really nice. Don't mind the snow that's falling through. Looks like it's snowing. Yay, Jab. It definitely hasn't been like a week since we last recorded. So yeah, the winter event is now happening. We are definitely gonna have to go grab some blue spruce here in a second, but probably in the next episode, because right now we gotta focus on getting this shop done and maybe even I don't know. We gotta get stocked up on a bunch of items. I don't know if that'll happen this episode or the next, but we gotta do it before Christmas, which is in 5 days from now, so we gotta hurry. So I'm just gonna quickly build a gear over here. It's gonna be 9 studs up, so right here is where I'm gonna put in the axle. That's gonna be filled in with coal wood, and then the rest of the gear is actually going to be birch wood, so it's gonna be a white gear this time instead of cherry wood. Jeff's gonna get some scaffolding down there so that we can get up to the gear a little bit easier. As always, we're going to do a lot of plot shifting to save as much wood as we can, so I'm going to plot shift this. Hopefully I do have plot shift. Looks like I do. I gotta actually remember where this is though. There we go. So now I'm gonna place in a short smooth wall right there, and then I'm basically gonna cross it, so this needs to go inside of there. Like so. Now if we fill those in, that should actually pop back into place. Like that. There we go. Okay, it is Z-fighting, but the axle actually goes through that, so you can't even tell, and that makes it so we don't have to use like 8 different tiny floors. It's just 2 blueprints, so yeah, that saves us a lot of wood. Now I'm gonna place in some skinny smooth walls for the spokes. Now I'm gonna basically build out the outer circle. So starting off with some smooth wall stubs and then a short smooth wall right there. So that gives us a nice shape, and then we just gotta smooth that out with wedges. So I've kind of smoothed it out. This kind of juts out, but that's actually going to attach to a spoke right here, so it's not going to be a big deal. Now I'm gonna build out the teeth of the gear. I'm going to plot shift out of the way this short smooth wall and place posts in where it was. Basically, that's just gonna help us save a little bit of wood. And with that back in place, you can see that, yeah, it might Z-fight, but once they're actually filled in, it's not gonna be as noticeable. And I'm gonna take some wedges, make that into a little tooth, and then I guess one more tooth right here. Now I'm gonna smooth this out by placing in some wedges kind of like this, and now I just gotta plot shift those back 1 studs so they're actually seamless. Now I'm gonna add in the diagonal spoke just with some regular old wedges, and then I'm gonna smooth that out by placing in a wedge like that, just 1 stud back. Alright, that is almost what it'll look like. There are some things that are still plot shifted, so it's not entirely perfect like this one right here. But I'm just gonna build the remaining 3 segments for each of these sides. Alright, I have finished all of the sides. I know it might not look like it. I just gotta reload to get all of the plot shifted parts back in place. And yeah, now you can see that gear in all of its glory. That is looking so awesome. That was over 100 blueprints in just that as well. It's actually a little bit more than each of these gears over here, if you can believe it. These ones look a little bit more basic, but if you remember, most of it is made of tiny floors. So I was fully expecting this to take up a little bit less because there's pretty much no tiny floors in this thing. But apparently it actually takes up a little bit more. It is a bigger gear though, to be fair. But anyways, there's just a few more things we gotta do to the exterior before it's fully finished, but those are mainly just on the 2nd floor of the building, so I want to turn my attention over to the interior because that's what we're actually supposed to be doing in this episode, is working on the interior, getting it all ready to put all of the items inside of there, so I want to do that first. So for that, I'm gonna go grab a bunch of wires, and these are just going to act as supports for all of the shelves. I just realized I'm not gonna be able to buy a whole lot of these. I am so broke. I've got 1,700 lumber bucks. Right now, Jeb is AFK, so hopefully he comes back and is able to help me out a little bit because I don't know how many wires I can afford. Yeah, this is almost all of my money. Okay, I guess I can probably afford 4 more. Bro, I didn't realize I was that broke. Okay, I just bought 4 more and yeah, I'm properly broke at this point. Ooh, okay, thank you. Jeb just came in clutch. Alright, I got a bunch of wires to the base, and now we gotta place them down on each of the corners of most of these shelves. So now I gotta place... Jab, what are you... Jab? So essentially I'm just going to build supports out for these shelves here, and I'm placing it in a way that it kind of looks like a spike up at the top. So I'm just gonna place a bunch of these to make this whole row look nice and supported. Alright, there we go. I put in a bunch of wires for all of the shelves. You can see that's making the shelves look a lot more supported and really cool, quite honestly. There are some adjustments I might want to make, like, for example, making these wires go all the way down to the bottom by plot shifting some of the things out of the way. But for now, I think that is going to do it. I can't do any plot shifting right now because Jab had to go for a little bit. Now, I do want to put in some rafters up above, and I think that's something that I can do relatively well without plot shifting, at least for the first little section. So for these rafters, I'm just placing in a bunch of small tables, and these are going to be divided by smooth walls, so it'll be sets of table rafters, and then it'll go a smooth wall, and then it will just go back to the tables, and we'll just alternate. And this is just gonna make the ceiling look a lot more interesting and more supported. Gonna add a lot of detail to the space, and it'll also allow us to just hang up some pipes up in the ceiling, because of course this is a steampunk shop, so of course there's gonna be pipes everywhere. Now there are some things that I still need a plot shift, so we gotta wait for Jab for that, but we can make do. We're gonna fill all of this in with walnut wood. So there we go, I've put in the rafters to the extent that I can right now without any plot shifting. There's another thing that needs to be done, which is that I need to write out shop on the back of the shop sign because I still haven't done it on this side, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Alright, there we go. I finished the other side of the shop sign, so now it doesn't matter which angle you're looking at it from. You can still see that this is a shop. Now I'm gonna add a few pipes just hooking into random spots of the building. So I'll start off by putting in some extra framing all the way along here. There we go, I put in some framing up there. Now I'm just going to put in some pipes with these blueprints I just filled in. And there we go, I've got some random pipes. Those make it look like something steampunky is happening up there. Then I wanted to add some industrial steampunk looking lights on each side of this window here. So I'm going to place in a couple of tiny floors. Those are just gonna be placeholders. And then I'm gonna place tiles all around it. Then I'm gonna destroy those tiny floors, and I can place a lever in there. Then I'll place some tiny floors in front of that and then double layer that, and maybe triple layer it actually. Now I'm gonna use some regular wires to make a cage around that. And there we go. So I built kind of like a little cage around that. Now I can destroy those tiny tiles that we used just for the spacing right in front of the lever. And now connecting to that lever underneath that cage, it might be a little bit hard to place it, but I'm going to place in an orange neon wire just like that. That should be good. Hopefully that'll turn on that one. Okay, we gotta make sure that doesn't turn that one on, actually. Okay, is that gonna work? Yeah, that works. There we go. Now I'll fill all of those in. And there we go. We've got a little lamp here. We're actually kind of out of regular wires. We do have one more orange neon wire, but I do just need a bunch of logic from Link's Logic. So I think I'm gonna take a trip over to Link's Logic real quick. All right, the ferry has just arrived. Let's make our way over to Link's Logic. And we're gonna need like a bunch of orange neon wires for sure for a bunch of different light fixtures that we're gonna do, but I also want to build a cash register. It'll all make sense once I actually get to building it, but yeah, we're over here. We've got all of these gifts right here that we should absolutely stock up on, but right now I want to make sure that we focus on getting this shop built so that we can actually have a place to sell all of the items that we stock up on. But I also don't want to procrastinate stocking up on the gifts for too long because I don't want a repeat of Thanksgiving since we unfortunately missed the Thanksgiving items. They went off sale sooner than I was expecting. So for the cash register, we're gonna need a wood detector, which is going to be super expensive. 11,000 is kind of crazy, but it needs to be done. And then we're also gonna need a couple of laser detectors, which are also fairly expensive. Not quite as expensive, but still considerably expensive for the amount of money that I have. Let's see, how much is this gonna be? 17,000, nearly 18,000 lumber bucks. So yeah, now we're down to 20k. That's crazy. And then I'm gonna need a gate of any kind. It doesn't really matter what kind of gate, it's just for the looks. So I'm just gonna get an AND gate. There we go. Let's flip the truck around so we can put all of the items into the bed of the truck much easier. All right, I got a bunch of levers and what's happened to my truck? Oh. Jab, looks like Jab has joined. I think he just respawned my truck. Well, I'm kind of stranded now. Hey, Jab, you want to come pick me up? Okay, sounds like Jab is coming over to the tropics. It's Jab. Hello, Jab. You're finally here. A lot of time has evidently passed, but you are here. All right, let's get this truck filled up with all of these items, and then we can get back. No! Alright, we missed the ferry. Jab, what did you do? I look away for 2 seconds. Jab, where are we going? Let's not drive out onto the ice. Bro. Last time I ever trust you with driving. Stop this! Jab, what is this parking job? Alright, well, anyways, we got a bunch of items. We can continue building. So that means I can now place in another one of these lamps on the other side. So now we got those lanterns in, and that is looking really cool, especially with the winter background through the window. It's just so cozy. But anyways, now I want to add a little counter in front of this so that we can actually sell things from it. I think we're gonna even have a little NPC sitting behind the counter. So for that, I'm gonna go grab some ovens from Fancy Furnishings. And I also want to grab a bunch of those maple lights. I think those would look really cool for like things like copper pipes. Every time I go to a store, it's another reminder that we desperately need to stock up on the gifts before they go off sale. I really hope we don't miss it. Oof, that's a lot of money for those. Oh man, I'm already going broke. Oof, that's another 4,000. I didn't realize these were so expensive. How much does it cost per? 1,400 lumber bucks. Dang, yeah, I'm gonna drain all of my money just buying a few of these, but it's all gonna be worth it for the aesthetics, right? All right, that's all of my money. Let's get these back to the base. All right, let's get these ovens moved in here, and I'm gonna place them all in a row right against this beam here. Alright, there we go, although we do need to place them a little bit inside of the floor though, because we don't want these little feet to stick through. So I'm actually going to plot shift the floor out of the way. Alright, I'm gonna place down a large floor here, and then place down some large tiles. I think it only needs to be 2 large tiles, just like that. That should be, yeah, I think that's good. So we gotta place all of them like that. I'm gonna fill all of that in with some gold wood. Now underneath these countertops, I need to place in a row of small tiles, but I gotta do it half a tile backwards. So in order to get that depth, I'm going to use a corrugated wall. I'll use one that's pretty small. This one should do. I think it might have to be placed against the bottom of the countertop. Okay, so now I can place a small tile against that, destroy the short corrugated wall, and that should be, yeah, half a tile backwards. And now I can place in my row of small tiles. And that's all gonna be filled in with oak wood. Now I'm gonna plot shift all of that out of the way so I can add some separators between each of the ovens. So essentially I'm just going to place down some tiles on the bottom of those countertops, just every 4 studs on both sides. So there we go, those are the dividers. I'm gonna fill those in with walnut wood. And while I'm doing this, Jab is going to put the gable onto the gable and bay thing that we have right here. That's architecture speak, so essentially he's putting the roof on the thing. And there we go, we got the separators in. Now I'm going to put in some pipes right here. I wonder what that'll look like. It's interesting. I did put in one that has a bend right there. I don't hate it, honestly. It kind of matches, but if I put this in, it's gotta be short enough that it won't make a segment. So something like that. Okay, there we go. I've got those maple icicle lights in and they look pretty cool. Jab's going to unplot shift those ovens so we can get a better idea of what's going on. And you can see behind here that this is all Z fighting. So to fix that, just gonna cover it up with some tiles. I'll just fill that in with cherry wood. Alright, now it's time to fix this situation back here because there is a little bit of Z fighting over here. It looks a little bit weird. So I'm going to place in a small tile here and another one on top of it. Then a couple of tiny tiles because I'm basically just going to add a little cutout right here. So all of that is going to be filled in with koa wood. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side except with walnut wood. Then I'm going to do the exact same thing except reversed and flipped upside down. And there we go, I've kind of put in a partition wall, although I think it looks a little bit weird. I want to make it look a little bit more even from the bottom to the top, so I think we're going to get rid of these two. And then also that's not nearly high enough, so I think I'm going to make that go up by an extra couple studs. Alright, this should get it to the right height, and yeah, that looks a lot more even. Loving the look of that. Now I'm gonna place in a ring of posts all the way across the top of that. And I'm gonna need to use a tiny floor to cap that off. Now I'm gonna fill that all in with walnut wood. Now on top of this ring of posts, I'm going to place in what is essentially just a ring of skinny smooth walls, going vertically this time. To finish it all off, I'm going to have to plot shift these square tables that are part of the rafters. And now I can place in some smooth walls on top to just cap that all off. Alright, that's looking really nice. So, oh, hello Jab, what's up? Oh, you're done? Oh, let's check it out. Alright. Ooh, that's looking awesome. Yeah, all right, so we got a little gable roof going on right there. Oh, we've got some blue spruce off in the distance. Wonder, we gotta check this server before we leave this server. Get all of the blue spruce collected from it, but yeah, that's looking so good. Thanks, Jab, for doing that. And now I can finish the rafters, actually, because now I can plot shift things out of the way. Okay, so I have reloaded, so now these small tiles are back in place. Tell me if you guys like that over just the regular old stove. I think it adds a little bit, but I also like the gray because it looks a little bit more steampunky, but I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna start putting in some pipes into the rafters, so I'm gonna just plot shift all of them out of the way, basically. Jeff just bought this wobble bobble because we're gonna need it here in a second. Thanks to Dominic for selling us that, but yeah, we're gonna use that for the NPC that we're gonna have sitting right here. Anyways, you can see that I got a lot of the rafters plot shifted out of the way. So yeah, I'm just gonna place in a bunch of pipes going all the way across. Alright, I put in a bunch of pipes up here. Now I gotta reload to get all of the rafters back in place. And there we go. Now we got a bunch of pipes up in the rafters, and that's making it look a lot more functional. Oh yeah, and also Jab has gone ahead and built a little NPC right here holding some cash. So yeah, that's so awesome. What shall we name? Jab? Jab, where's his head? Okay, there we go. Sorry about your head. I'm just trying to reposition it a little bit. There we go. Okay, he's beautiful. Jab, what should we name him? How about the comment with the most likes decides his name? I like that. All right, you guys, go down in the comments. Come up with a name for this guy. The comment with the most likes is gonna be this guy's name, alright? Let's add a little cash register in front of this guy. So right here, I'm going to place in the back of the register. It's going to be facing towards the NPC. Then I'm gonna put in some small tiles against that. And then I'm gonna have to plot shift all of this out of the way. Now I'm gonna place down a wood detector right against that, and then plot shift that out of the way, and then place some wood detectors against that, plot shift those out of the way, and finally place in an AND gate right here. And after Jab unplot shifted all of that, I'm just gonna add some wires on both sides, and there we go. We've got a little cash register. It looks kind of like a cash register. I guess it's the best we're gonna get in Lumber Tycoon 2. Now we've got these smooth wall beams that go in between each of the table segments, and on each of those I'm actually gonna place a hanging light. So to build these hanging lights, I'm gonna place down 3 posts and then destroy those 2. Now I'm gonna surround that post with tiny tiles. Now I'm going to destroy the post, and really this hanging light is not going to be much different from the lights that we built over here. Just going to put in these levers, so I'm just going to place in a wire cage, much like what we did with these lights. Alright, there we go. I put in a little wire cage. Now I just gotta put in the neon wire and fill in all of the blueprints, and we will have a functioning light. Turn those on. Yeah, it's looking awesome. Now I need to add some support for this. So I'm just gonna add a little structure to hold it up from the ceiling. Destroy those, and there we go. We've got a little bit of something holding it to the ceiling. We're gonna need a lot more wires if we wanna build all of that, so I'm just gonna buy a ton of them. So I got myself a utility vehicle, and I'm gonna use this as a shopping cart to get a ton of these. Alright, we got quite the truckload of wires acquired. Jab actually built a little bit of a table shelf here, so I'm gonna add some legs to it. Alright, I'm just going to place that in, and that is the final leg of this little shelf. That's pretty awesome. It's kind of like a candy shelf, so Jab was thinking we might open up this little candy bag right here. Let's see, can we get lucky? Is there gonna be a white candy bar on it? No, but we did get turkeys. I do like the turkeys. Alright, we got all of those hanging lights in. Those are looking so awesome. And actually, the downstairs is pretty much done at this point. Now we need to shift our focus upstairs because this is pretty unfinished. We're just gonna put in a bunch of shelves because this will be mainly just a storage area to store some of the larger items. I guess we can sell them technically from up here, but this will be more of a storage area, so it's not gonna be as pretty, I don't think. So yeah, for that, we're just going to place in a bunch of shelves, much like what we did downstairs. Okay, so we put in a bunch of shelves, and these are gonna be perfect for storing bigger items. And then we also finished the ceiling, so now it covers up the awkward attic that was up there. It's a little bit hard to see, so I'm actually gonna put in a few lights, taking heavy inspiration from this light bulb right here. Just gonna do some very similar ones, just much smaller for the interior. Alright, I got those lights in. I did have to swap them out. I originally had them as walnut wood, but I turned them to koa wood just because as walnut wood, they just blended way too much with the ceiling. But yeah, those are looking pretty nice. Definitely light up the space sufficiently. You can also see that there has been glass panes installed in all of the windows. Jab has gone ahead and put a bunch of glass panes even in these windows over here, using some 1/1 wedges to kind of make it look a little bit better. But yeah, Jab also put in a hatch right here just to separate the two areas if we ever want to close that for whatever reason we would. But yeah, with that, I think that is actually the interior and the exterior pretty much done for the shop. So the Steam shop is, I guess it's not entirely done because there is that little part that still needs to be turned into a hook up there, but we need to wait until we can expand our land. We'll basically just put this hook on the other side as well, but that's gonna have to wait until we actually expand our land. So yeah, that is the Steam shop pretty much finished. I am so happy with the way that has turned out, and yeah, that means that we are now ready to start stocking it up with a bunch of items, but we need to stock up. Luckily, Jab actually got a bunch of money. You can see 500,000 lumber bucks. That's going to be plenty to stock up on the new Christmas items. So we're gonna do that in the next episode. We also got a bunch of blue spruce trees around, and Jab actually also got a bunch of blue spruce all during a live stream. I'll leave a link in the description in case you are interested in checking that out. But yeah, I think we're gonna collect even more blue spruce in the next episode. Of course, we're gonna stock up on items and stock the shop finally. Cannot wait. I just love the look of the shop, especially with the snow. It's such a mood. I love that. But yeah, I can't wait to stock up the shop. That's gonna pretty much do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, huge shout out to all of the channel members for helping to make all of these videos possible. If you guys want to become a member, you can do so by clicking the join button right next to the subscribe button. But yeah, I'm gonna have to say a goodbye for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode once it's out. See ya!